Welcome to this special news broadcast. The topic of today is objectivity and subjectivity, particularly in decision making during your design process. Subjectivity can lead to bias, an unfair prejudice, which could make your end result less credible, and this research has the intention to make your result more credible. 3 students of the TDELT worked several weeks on gaining knowledge and experimenting on the role of objectivity and subjectivity within the design process, and search for tools or methods to let the designers of the future know how they should implement these within their decision making.
Decision making is one of the hardest parts of the design process and also one of the main obstacles where it works better to let loose of personal feelings and create an objective view towards a client, where the reason should be as credible as possible. We did a small experiment on judging your own work on favorability compared to the work of others. This experiment showed that it was hard for participants to stay objective. We have seen that while using objective measurements or decision methods, different people have different valuations on the same thing. Within decision making, it is almost impossible to only use objective values. People need something that makes them aware of their valuations and the roles of subjectivity in their design process. Because the big problem of subjectivity is that it leads to bias, which is an unfair assessment of certain phenomena because of assumptions.
So that's interesting, but how should our students tackle bias? For example, in their future projects or their working life?
People are not aware of their own bias. Research concluded that the big problem within decision making is the bias blind spot. Everyone has some form of unconscious bias. It is part of what makes us human. The Boston University found out that most people have no idea how biased they actually are, and that most people believe that the people around them are more biased than themselves. And this phenomenon is called the bias blind spot. Our ability to perceive bias in others is pretty good, but our ability to perceive bias in ourselves is generally dreadful. The bias blind spot can be incredibly problematic. When we operate from within our blind spot, we are more likely to reject the input of peers and experts. We are the least likely to benefit from education and training concerning our particular bias. But how do we tackle this? It is very hard to tackle this blind spot bias on our own. But once you have acknowledged the existence of the spot, you can commit to tackle the biases it masks. It may be easier to enroll the services of a coach or a peer to help you with this. Another method is the de-biasing intervention. Research led to different manifestations that increase the awareness of bias, but bias within design decisions will decrease while using these interventions. An example of an intervention is as follows. When you play a game in which you ask the participant constantly how biased he was after he took a decision in the game, you will see that in the beginning the participant will value his decisions low on bias, but after a while the participant is forced to reflect and the insight that he is a lot more biased than he thought was created. And the result was that after 2 months the participants were still more aware of their bias within decision making and that they used less bias during their design process.
So, what are the main takeaways for us students in terms of subjectivity within the design process and also in how you can improve this? Make sure you get aware of your bias because it happens more often than you think. Use a peer review or ask a coach to look critical at your design choices. Make use of de-biasing interventions to improve your awareness and to reduce it subconsciously. Thank you for your attention. Good day and see you next time.